Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Our mission, as always, is to cut through the noise, sift through stacks of information, and really bring you the most compelling, the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight.
Exactly.
And today, we're plunging into a case that has captivated and, frankly, puzzled people for 2 decades now. The disappearance of Maura Murray.
It's such a haunting story.
It really is. A young woman who, after what seemed like a minor car accident, just stepped out of her vehicle and into this profound mystery on a snowy New Hampshire night.
Yeah, and it's a case that has absolutely refused to fade from public consciousness, I think mainly because of just the layers of perplexing details and, honestly, the agonizing lack of answers for her family.
Absolutely.
For this deep dive, we've meticulously pulled from a pretty wide array of sources. We looked at extensive reporting from People magazine, the comprehensive timeline, and all the granular details you can find on Wikipedia.
Which is surprisingly detailed for this case.
It really is. We also used official information from the FBI and some recent, really vital investigative reporting from the U.S. Sun. And we also drew insights from journalist James Renner's extensive work on the case. He's been on it for a long time.
Right. So our goal today is to meticulously piece together the known timeline. Maura's last days, her last hours. We're going to examine the, bewildering events leading up to and immediately following her vanishing.
And we'll analyze the investigative paths that were taken and maybe some that were tragically missed.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. And crucially, we'll explore the enduring questions that keep this case so agonizingly alive, not just for her family, but for so many people who follow it online and elsewhere.
So you're about to get a shortcut to being really well informed on one of the most talked about cold cases of our time.
Let's unpack this.
Okay, so to truly understand the enigma of Maura Murray's disappearance, we really need to go back before that snowy night on Route 112.
Right, context is everything here.
Exactly. We have to look at the turbulent path she was navigating in her personal life. What's often overlooked, I think, is the sheer amount of psychological pressure Maura was under in the weeks and days leading up to February 9th.
That's such a critical starting point. Because Maura, she was born May 4th, 1982. So she was just 21 years old when she disappeared on February 9th, 2004.
Just 21.
Yeah. At the time, she was a nursing student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. But her academic journey, it actually began somewhere pretty different at the United States Military Academy at West Point.
Right, West Point. That's intense.
Super intense. She studied chemical engineering there for 3 semesters before deciding, it wasn't the right fit. Then she transferred to UMass Amherst for nursing.
And she was athletic, too, wasn't she?
Oh, yeah, quite the athlete.
Yeah.
A star on her high school track team, an avid runner. Her family also talks about how much she loved hiking in the White Mountains. That place becomes pretty central to her mystery later on.
It does. And what's truly fascinating here is that while Maura presented this capable athletic exterior, recently released documents paint a far more complex and frankly troubled picture of her internal world.
Oh, so?
While some peers described her as reserved, quiet, even kind of an introvert who was struggling to adapt to campus life.
Okay.
But more significantly, these documents confirmed she was battling an eating disorder, bulimia, and experiencing severe depression.
Wow.
Yeah. And this depression, it seems, was partly stemming from her older sister Kathleen's struggles with alcohol addiction. That was deeply affecting Maura, especially after Kathleen's recent discharge from rehab.
That's a heavy load for a young person.
It is. And on top of that, she was also enduring a turbulent period in her long-distance relationship with her boyfriend, Bill Rausch. So you just have layer upon layer of emotional strain.
So she was undeniably carrying this heavy emotional burden.
Yeah.
And then adding another layer of pressure, we know she had this past legal issue that was still very much unresolved.
Right, the credit card incident.
Yeah.
Exactly. In November 2003, just 3 months before she vanished, Maura admitted to fraudulently using a stolen credit card to order food, like takeout food.
Okay.
And the consequences?
Well, the charge was actually set to be dismissed after 90 days of good behavior, which means she was literally under the wire with this thing hanging over her head right before she disappeared.
So that 90-day clock was ticking down right around February.
Precisely. This, coupled with everything else, it paints a picture of a young woman potentially at a breaking point.
Indeed. That legal entanglement, combined with her other, deeply personal struggles, It suggests a significant amount of stress and maybe a potential desire to escape somehow.
It makes figuring out her intentions really hard.
Absolutely. Was it just to get away for a short time? Was it to escape permanently or maybe meet someone? It's incredibly challenging for investigators, and you see this kind of profile often in unexpected disappearances.
Okay, so let's zero in now on the immediate days leading up to February 9th, 2004. Because this is where the picture of her distress really sharpens. It seems like it almost reaches a breaking point.
Yeah, the timeline gets very compressed and intense here.
So on February 5th, 2004, just a few days before she went missing, Maura was on duty at her campus security job. She gets a phone call from her sister, Kathleen.
And this was the sister struggling with alcoholism.
Yes. Kathleen had just been discharged from a rehab clinic, and apparently her fiancé had reportedly taken her directly to a liquor store. She relapsed.
Oh, that's just awful.
Right. And Maura's reaction to this news was incredibly telling and quite alarming to people around her.
What happened?
Her supervisor saw her break down in tears, became completely zoned out, unresponsive.
Wow.
When asked if there was a family emergency, Maura apparently responded, "No, nothing to do with me," and later, "It's my sister's problem, not mine." But she was visibly shaking and crying silently while saying this.
That sounds like someone trying really hard to hold it together, but failing.
Totally. The supervisor was so concerned, they tried to get Maura to see a counselor immediately right then.
Yeah.
But she refused. She only agreed to leave work early, and she appeared very distressed and depressed.
Yeah, that incident really highlights the depth of her emotional struggles, especially about her sister's addiction, and maybe her inability or unwillingness to seek help herself right then. It paints a picture of someone internally collapsing.
And then, just 2 days later, early morning, February 8th, 2004, there was another car crash.
Another one, before the one in New Hampshire.
Yes. This one adds even more stress. Maura's father, Fred Murray, was visiting UMass Amherst. They went car shopping, had dinner, and then Maura borrowed his new Toyota Corolla to go to a dorm party.
Okay.
At 3:30 a.m., while driving back to her father's motel, Maura crashed his car into a guardrail on Massachusetts Route 9.
3:30 a.m., crashing her dad's new car.
Exactly. And this wasn't just a little fender bender. It caused nearly $10,000 worth of damage.
Wow. $10,000.
Yeah. And what's also kind of intriguing about this crash, no field sobriety tests were done. No citation was issued, despite the time of night and the, extent of the damage.
That's interesting. Maybe because her dad was there.
Oh.
Or just lucky.
Hard to say. But her reaction to this second crash, her father described her making whimpering sounds, saying, "This is the worst." Clearly felt like she'd let him down.
Understandable.
Fred, trying to reassure her, told her, "It'll get fixed." And crucially, she promised him she would pick up accident forms from the Registry of Motor Vehicles for his insurance claim.
Okay, remember that promise. That becomes important later.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Then, just over an hour later, at 4:49 a.m., a cell phone call was placed from Fred's phone to Maura's boyfriend, Bill.
From Fred's phone,
Yeah.
not hers.
And the participants, the content of that call, it remains unknown, which is just this tantalizing blank space in the timeline.
So many questions just from that one call. Who made it? What was said?
Exactly. So Maura is dealing with intense distress from her sister's relapse, the big car crash with her dad's car, the pressure of that looming credit card fraud charge dismissal date, and a strained relationship. It's just this volatile backdrop for Monday, February 9th.
It really is. It's not just a list of events. It feels like a cascading series of personal crises converging on that one day.
And her actions on that Monday speak volumes, though. I mean, their meaning is still so hotly debated.
Oh, absolutely. After midnight in the very early hours of February 9th, she used her personal computer. She searched MapQuest for directions to the Berkshires and also Burlington, Vermont.
Okay, so planning a trip, it seems.
Seems like it. She also called to inquire about renting a condominium in Bartlett, New Hampshire. That was a place her family had vacationed before.
Familiar territory.
Yeah. And later she called a number that provided recorded information about booking hotels in Stowe, Vermont.
So multiple potential destinations floated. New Hampshire, Vermont, the Berkshires.
Right. But despite all these inquiries, all this research, no bookings were ever confirmed. Nothing was actually reserved.
So maybe indecisive. Or maybe trying to obscure her real plans.
Could be either. It suggests a desire to travel, for sure, but maybe an uncertain destination. Or maybe she made last-minute plans we don't know about.
And her communications that afternoon are just as perplexing. They offer these little hints, but no clear answers.
Like the emails?
Yeah. At 1 p.m., she emailed her boyfriend, Bill. I love you more, stud. I got your messages, but honestly, I didn't feel like talking too much of anyone. I promised to call today, though. Love you, Maura.
Okay, so acknowledging things are maybe strained, but promising the call. That sounds forward-looking in a way.
It does. But then, at 1:24 p.m., she emailed her work supervisor. And this is the really weird one. She falsely claimed she'd be out of town for a week because of a death in her family.
The death in the family, but that wasn't true.
Not true at all. She said she'd contact them when she returned. This detail just continues to perplex everyone. Investigators, her family. Why lie about something so specific and serious?
It sounds like she was trying to create an alibi for being gone for a week, but again, saying she'd return.
Exactly. Then, at 2:18 p.m., she left a voicemail for her boyfriend. It was a 1-minute call, again promising to talk later.
These aren't really the actions of someone definitively planning to, end their life or vanish forever without a trace. The lies are strange, but the promises to call, the intent to return.
Right. It points to someone trying to create a reason for an absence, but maybe not a permanent one.
And her final actions on campus before she left, they further muddy the waters. This became a point of early contention.
What does she do?
Moore upped clothing, toiletries, college textbooks, and birth control pills into her car, her black 1996 Saturn sedan.
Okay.
When her dorm room was later searched, campus police found most of her belongings packed up in boxes. Even the art was off her walls. So this led police to initially believe she had packed everything up that day and was maybe planning to leave UMass Amherst for good. Just drop out and disappear.
And there was that email found too, right?
Yeah, adding to that initial police theory, a printed email to her boyfriend was found on top of the packed boxes. It apparently indicated possible trouble in their relationship.
So that seemed to support the idea of personal distress, maybe wanting to leave.
Exactly. But this is where her family, particularly her sister Julie, really pushes back. And they have strong counter-arguments.
What's their take?
Julie disputes the idea that Maura planned to disappear forever or harm herself. She suggests Maura hadn't even fully unpacked her room since moving in at the start of the semester.
Okay, so the boxes might have just been there.
Possibly. And Julie points to the items Maura packed in the car: textbooks, birth control, teeth whitener, makeup, her favorite book, Not Without Peril. Julie argues these things indicate an intention to return after a short trip.
Like things you'd need for daily life or a short break?
Exactly. Not things you'd pack if you were leaving forever. And Julie also points out that Maura turned in a homework assignment that day. She also recycled 79 cans and bottles for a small credit.
Huh. Recycling cans?
Yeah. These are seen by her family as actions totally inconsistent with someone planning to end their life or vanish permanently. They're mundane, forward-looking tasks.
Things you do if you expect to be back. It's a powerful argument from the family.
It really is. Then there's the financial aspect of her preparations, also noteworthy.
Right, the ATM withdrawal.
At 3:40 p.m., Maura withdrew $280 from an ATM. It was nearly her full balance, and the closed-circuit footage clearly shows she was alone.
Okay.
Then, at a nearby liquor store, she bought about $40 worth of alcohol, Bailey's Irish Cream, Kahlua vodka, and a box of Franzia wine. Security footage again shows she was alone.
That's a fair amount of alcohol.
It is. And that purchase, combined with her distressed state, later contributed significantly to those initial theories about her potentially being intoxicated at the crash site and fleeing.
Okay. And here's that crucial detail Maura's family always highlights. The small but powerful piece of evidence supporting their argument against voluntary disappearance.
The accident forms.
The accident forms. At some point that day, she picked up the blank accident report forms from the Registry of Motor Vehicles, just like she promised her father she would.
Fulfilling her promise.
Exactly. Julie emphasizes this. She argues Maura felt horrible about crashing his car, and there was no way she was not going to follow through on her promise to get them for him. For the family, this shows intent to return.
This strong point.
So around 3:30 p.m., Maura drove off campus, presumably heading towards New Hampshire or Vermont. Her last recorded cell phone use was at 4:37 p.m., checking her voicemail. After that, silence. And there's no indication she told anyone exactly where she was going.
So we have this young woman, clearly deeply distressed, preparing for a trip with an uncertain destination, making false claims to her employer, gathering supplies, including a significant amount of alcohol, and leaving this trail of contradictory clues about her intentions.
Yeah. And all these threads converge on Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire, which is where the true mystery begins.
The scene of the crash itself. This is where the facts become really perplexing and the conflicting accounts start piling up.
Okay, set the scene.
Around 7 p.m. on February 9th, a Woodsville, New Hampshire resident named Faith Westman heard a loud thump. She looked out her window, saw a car up against a snowbank on Route 112. It's also known as Wild Ammonoosuc Road.
Okay, she saw the immediate aftermath.
Yes. At 7:27 p.m., she called the Grafton County Sheriff's Department. Now, there's an interesting detail here. The 911 log initially claimed she saw a man smoking a cigarette inside the car.
A man, not Maura.
Right. But the resident later clarified she actually saw a red light glowing inside the car, maybe from a cell phone, not a man smoking.
Okay, so an early discrepancy right there. Highlights how details can get mixed up.
Exactly. Then, a local school bus driver named Butch Atwood, who lived nearby, he becomes a pivotal witness. He was driving home, stopped at the scene.
What did he see?
He saw Maura. She was walking around her damaged car. He noted she wasn't bleeding or visibly injured, but she was cold and shivering.
Okay, so she was outside the car, seemed okay physically, but cold.
Right. He offered to call for help. And this is where it gets truly unsettling. Maura asked him not to call the police.
She didn't want the police called.
No. She claimed she had already called AAA. But here's the thing. AAA has absolutely no record of any such call.
Wow. So she lied about calling for help. Why would she do that? Fear of a DUI from the alcohol. Fear of getting in trouble for crashing again.
That's the million-dollar question. It's a major red flag. Now, Butch Atwood knew there was basically no cell reception in that specific area, so he was probably skeptical about her AAA claim anyway.
Right. You can't just make a call there easily.
Exactly. So, showing genuine concern, he went home, his house was close by, and he called the police anyway. That was at 7:43 p.m.
Okay, so he disregarded her request and called authorities.
Yes. While he was on the phone, he couldn't see Maura's car anymore from his house. But he did notice several other cars pass by the scene on Route 112.
Other cars passing by, potentially witnesses or potentially someone who gave her a ride.
Potentially. And then we have another wrinkle. Another local resident claimed to have passed the scene around 7:37 p.m.
Okay, before Butch Atwood called police.
Right. And this resident claimed they saw a police SUV parked face-to-face with Maura's car, but they said there was no one inside or outside either vehicle.
A police SUV. But the official log says police arrived later.
Exactly. The official log states the first Haverhill police officer arrived 9 minutes later at 7:46 p.m. So this reported sighting of an SUV earlier directly conflicts with the official record.
That's a critical point of contention. Could it have been another agency? Or was the timing off? Or was the witness mistaken?
All possibilities. It introduces the chance of an earlier, maybe unlogged police interaction, or perhaps another unknown vehicle that looked like an official one at the scene. Major confusion point.
Okay, so according to the official police log, the first officer arrived at 7:46 p.m. What did they find?
By that time, Maura was gone. Just vanished. No one was inside or around the car.
And the car itself.
The black 1996 Saturn sedan had hit a tree on the driver's side. It severely damaged the left headlight, pushed the radiator into the fan, basically rendering it inoperable.
So it wasn't drivable.
No way. The windshield was cracked on the driver's side, and both airbags had deployed. And the car was locked.
Locked, okay. The impact sounds pretty significant. Could she have been dazed? Injured?
Quite possibly. A crash like that could definitely leave someone disoriented or injured, even if Butch Atwood didn't see obvious bleeding.
And what did they find inside that locked car? That's always been a source of mystery.
It really is, just as puzzling. They found red stains that looked like red wine, both inside and outside the car, even on the driver's side door and the ceiling.
Wine stains. Okay.
An empty beer bottle and a damaged box of Franzia wine were on the rear seat, and there was an open Coke bottle containing a red liquid that had a strong alcoholic odor.
So that discovery immediately led to theories she might have been drinking, maybe intoxicated, and fled to avoid a DUI arrest.
Absolutely. That theory certainly played a huge role in the initial police assessment and the public narrative.
What else was in the car?
A mix of things. Her AAA card, those blank accident report forms she'd picked up for her dad.
The forms again?
Yep. Gloves, CDs, makeup, some diamond jewelry, printed driving directions to Burlington, Vermont, her favorite stuffed animal.
A stuffed animal.
Yeah, and that book, Not Without Peril, the one about mountain climbing in the White Mountains.
Okay. But what was missing? That's just as important.
Crucially important, Maura's debit card, her credit cards, and her cell phone were all missing.
Gone. And have they ever surfaced?
Never. Not located, not used since that day. Also, some of the liquor bottles she bought earlier were missing from the car.
The absence of her phone, wallet. That's a major red flag for the family, right? Suggests she didn't just wander off disoriented. Someone either took them or she took them with her when she left the immediate scene.
Precisely. And here's where it gets truly, truly baffling. A detail that has shaped every single theory about how she left that roadside.
The footprints, or lack thereof.
Exactly. Despite a recent snowstorm that had left almost 2 feet of fresh snow on the ground, police found no footprints leading anywhere away from the car.
None. In 2 feet of snow.
Not a single track leading off into the woods or down the road. Nothing.
That detail is just monumental. It almost rules out her just walking away into the trees, right?
Yeah.
Especially if she was injured or disoriented, you'd expect some kind of trail.
You would absolutely expect a trail. The lack of tracks strongly suggests she didn't leave the vicinity of the car on her own 2 feet walking through the snow. It points heavily towards a pickup. Either she got into another vehicle voluntarily or she was taken involuntarily.
By one of those cars Butch Atwood saw passing by, maybe.
It's a leading theory. Someone stopped, she got in, and they drove away, leaving no footprints behind.
Okay, so the car's found, Maura's gone, no footprints. What happens next? Was there any immediate sighting?
There was an alleged sighting reported much later. Between 8 p.m. and 8:30 p.m. that night, a contractor driving by reportedly saw a young person moving quickly on foot eastbound on Route 112. This was about 4 to 5 miles east of the crash site.
4 to 5 miles? That's a long way to walk in the cold and dark after a crash.
It is. The person was described as wearing jeans, a dark coat, and a light-colored hood. Pretty generic description.
Did he report it right away?
No, and that's the problem. He didn't report the sighting until 3 months later.
3 months. Wow. That really diminishes its value. Memory fades, details blur.
Exactly. It's potentially important, but the delay makes it hard to rely on. Meanwhile, back at the scene, the responding officer and Butch Atwood drove around the area, searching for Maura, but found nothing. By 8:49 p.m., less than 2 hours after the crash was reported, Maura's car had been towed to a local garage.
Sewed away pretty quickly.
Yeah. And another curious detail was found later at the garage. A rag, believed to be from Maura's own emergency roadside kit, was discovered stuffed into the Saturn's muffler pipe.
A rag in the tailpipe. What does that even mean? Sabotage. An attempt to stall the car earlier. Something unrelated.
Nobody knows. It's just another one of those weird, unexplained details in this case. So initially, police treated Maura as a missing person. They believed she might have disappeared voluntarily, largely because of her travel preparations, the lie to her work, and the lack of obvious foul play right there at the scene.
But that initial assessment, so we'll see, it really set the tone for the early investigation and caused a lot of friction with her family.
Absolutely. They felt strongly from the start that something more sinister had happened.
So we have this distressed young woman, a mysterious crash, conflicting witness accounts, no footprints in deep snow, and a car full of bizarre clues and missing items. This is the incredibly confusing stage set for the desperate search efforts that followed, and the frustrating leads and dead ends that have plagued this case for 2 long decades.
It's just a complex web of facts, unknowns, and possibilities.
Let's talk about those initial search efforts. February to June 2004. What happened?
Things moved quickly at first. On February 10th, the day after the crash, a Be on the Lookout alert was issued for Maura. It described her as wearing a dark coat, jeans, and a black backpack.
Okay, standard procedure.
Meanwhile, her father, Fred Murray, actually received a voicemail saying his daughter's car had been found abandoned, but he missed the call.
Oh, no.
Yeah. His other daughter, Kathleen, was the one who eventually informed him, and that brought him rushing up to Haverhill.
So the family gets involved immediately.
Right. The very next day, February 11th, Fred arrived. A search began pretty much right away with Maura's family, friends, New Hampshire Fish and Game, other law enforcement volunteers.
What did they find?
Well, they brought in a tracking dog. The dog picked up Maura's scent from one of her gloves found near the car.
Okay, promising.
It tracked the scent about 100 yards east from where the car had been along the road. But then the scent just stopped, vanished.
Stopped cold. Like she got into a car there.
That's exactly what the police speculated, that the abrupt end of the scent trail meant she'd left the area in another vehicle right at that spot, about 100 yards from the crash site.
Okay.
Fred and Maura's boyfriend, Bill, were questioned. And this is where that early police theory really solidified and where the friction started. Police suggested to them that Maura might have run away intentionally or perhaps was suicidal.
And the family rejected that.
Immediately and vehemently. They felt it dismissed the possibility of foul play way too quickly, especially given the lack of footprints and the weird circumstances.
And there was that strange voicemail too, right?
Yeah, adding to the mystery, Maura's boyfriend Bill received this odd voicemail. He believed it was Maura sobbing, but the call was traced to a calling card issued to the American Red Cross. Its origin, its meaning, still totally elusive. Another dead end.
So bizarre.
Then, on February 12th, just 3 days after she vanished, police publicly reported Maura was listed as endangered and possibly suicidal. They also stated they believed she was intoxicated at the crash site.
Even though Butch Atwood said she didn't seem injured or impaired, just cold.
Exactly. That statement directly contradicted the primary witness account, and this early declaration by law enforcement, it caused significant distress for the family. It also created a narrative in the public's mind that was really hard to shift later on, focusing attention away from other possibilities like abduction.
I can see how frustrating that would be for the family.
Absolutely. 10 days after Maura disappeared, the FBI joined the investigation. That expanded the search efforts nationwide. They conducted a second ground and air search using a helicopter with a thermal imaging camera, more tracking dogs, even cadaver dogs.
High-tech search. Any results?
Despite all that advanced technology, all that manpower, nothing conclusive was found. No sign of Maura.
And then her sister found something.
Yeah, on February 26th, Maura's older sister, Julie, found a ripped white pair of women's underwear in the snow near French Pond Road, not terribly far from the crash site. For a moment, that seemed like a potential breakthrough. A horrible one, but maybe a clue.
But it wasn't hers.
No. DNA tests later confirmed it did not belong to Maura. Just another devastating blow, another false lead.
God, the emotional roller coaster for the family must have been unbearable.
Unimaginable. Then, in March 2004, another young woman, Brianna Maitland, disappeared in Montgomery, Vermont. It was only about 66 miles away.
Brianna Maitland, I remember that case. Her car was found abandoned too, wasn't it?
Yes, very similar circumstances in some ways. Both young women, both cars, found abandoned shortly after they went missing. The proximity, the timing, it naturally drew comparisons from the media and law enforcement. People wondered if there was a connection, maybe a serial predator.
Was there a link?
State police investigated, but ultimately found no concrete links between the two cases. They dismissed the possibility of a shared perpetrator, at least officially.
So these early stages, frantic searching, the police focusing on voluntary disappearance or suicide, family pushing back, some strange clues leading nowhere.
Pretty much sums it up. And that initial focus, in the family's view, potentially misdirected valuable time and resources away from investigating foul play right from the start.
The investigation obviously continued beyond those first few months, and there were some, well, pretty unconventional leads that came up, and frankly, some developments that raised a lot of questions about how things were handled.
Definitely. Take the story of the bloodied knife.
Right. Tell us about that.
In late 2004, so several months after the disappearance, a man gave Fred Murray a rusty knife with reddish-brown stains on it.
Just gave it to him.
Yeah. And this man claimed his brother, who lived less than a mile from the crash site, had killed Maura and buried her remains beneath his house.
Wow. That's incredibly specific and disturbing.
It is. The accused brother apparently had a criminal past, and he and his girlfriend had reportedly acted strangely after Maura disappeared. So it seemed like a potentially credible, if shocking, lead.
So what did Fred do with the knife? Gave it to the police, obviously.
Well, here's the truly startling part, and a moment that really highlights some significant investigative challenges, or maybe missteps. Fred tried to give the knife to the New Hampshire State Police. They initially refused to take it.
They refused evidence in a potential murder case.
Initially, yes. They only accepted it later, after Fred mailed it to them. And the family remained completely in the dark about what happened with that knife, if it was tested, what the results were, until very recently.
That's unbelievable. What's the recent update?
Julie Murray has stated that law enforcement finally acknowledged just recently that they did test the knife for Maura's DNA, but the results still remain undisclosed to the family.
Still undisclosed after all this time.
Yep. This is such a critical point. The initial refusal to accept physical evidence, especially with such a grave accusation attached, it's a glaring procedural issue. It breeds distrust, fuels speculation, makes you wonder what else might have been mishandled.
Absolutely. What happened to the man who gave the tip and the brother he accused?
The original tipster has since died. Other family members later claimed he fabricated the whole story to try and get reward money, citing his drug use. So the credibility is definitely questioned.
Okay.
And it's also worth noting that just days after the knife was given to Fred, the accused brother allegedly scrapped his Volvo.
Scrapped his car.
Yeah.
Right after this accusation surfaced? That seems suspicious. Potential evidence destroyed.
Exactly. The whole handling of this knife situation just raises serious questions about the initial thoroughness and maybe priorities of the investigation.
And the house itself where the brother lived. Was that ever searched properly?
It became a focus later on. In October 2006, cadaver dogs were brought to the property, that A-frame house near the crash site. The dogs allegedly went bonkers. That was a term used near closet.
Indicating human remains.
Potentially. That's what cadaver dogs are trained for. A carpet sample from that area was taken and sent for testing. But again, the results were not publicly released. Fred Murray repeatedly sought permission to search the property himself, driven by this desperate hope.
But he couldn't get access.
Not for years. Eventually, the property was sold. The new owners were more cooperative and allowed searches.
So they finally excavated.
Yes. In 2019, it was a major effort. State police and the FBI conducted an extensive excavation in the basement of that house. They removed concrete, dug several feet down, a thorough search. They found absolutely nothing other than maybe some old pottery or piping fragments, nothing related to Maura.
Oh, devastating.
Fred expressed deep disappointment. He said, "This one hurts because I thought we finally had it." It shows this persistent thread of inquiry around that specific location, based on the knife and the dogs, but ultimately it led to another dead end.
Such a frustrating pattern. But there was another potential oversight Julie Murray found recently, right? Something in the initial paperwork.
Yes, this is quite stunning, actually. Julie recently got access to the initial search warrant for Maura's car, a foundational document.
What did you find?
She discovered a handwritten note inside the file with an address and phone number for a condominium in Bartlett, New Hampshire.
Bartlett. That's where Maura had called about renting a condo and where the family vacationed.
Exactly. And adding another layer, the owner of that specific condo was actually from Maura's hometown.
A direct connection.
Huh.
So police obviously followed up on that lead back in 2004.
Apparently not. Julie said she was gut-punched to learn that, as far as she can tell from the records and her inquiries, police had reportedly never contacted the owner of that condo at the time of the disappearance.
Never called the number. Never checked if Maura showed up there.
Seems not. Julie, driven by her own need for answers, actually called the owner herself for her podcast recently. The owner confirmed law enforcement had never reached out back then.
That feels like basic detective work missed, a potential destination, a familiar place, a contact number, and it wasn't followed up on.
It's a truly critical point. It highlights a potential failure in fundamental investigation right at the beginning. A direct contact point to a familiar place, a known family vacation spot. It should have been a priority lead.
Why would that be missed? Overwhelmed, focused too much on the suicide theory.
Could be any of those. Oversight, resource constraints, or maybe a fixed belief in the voluntary disappearance theory that made them discount leads, pointing to her potentially reaching a planned destination. Whatever the reason, it definitely fuels the family's frustration.
Understandably. It's a reminder that those initial assumptions can really narrow the scope of an investigation, maybe causing crucial information to just slip through the cracks. So where does all this leave the case now, 20 years later? Has the official status changed?
Yes, it has. In 2009, Maura's case was officially transferred to New Hampshire's Cold Case Division. And since then, it's been handled as a suspicious missing persons case, and sometimes even referred to as a potential homicide.
Okay, so that's a significant shift from just missing. It acknowledges the high probability of foul play.
Absolutely. It allows for different investigative tools, different resources, and reflects that growing belief, certainly held by the family and many investigators now, that foul play is likely involved. Fred Murray had publicly criticized the police investigation back in 2010 for treating it just as a missing persons case for too long, calling for more FBI involvement.
And have there been searches since it became a cold case?
Yes, over the years, various private organizations, volunteers, podcasters, they've conducted searches, often funded by donations or the family, but none have yielded conclusive findings.
Any recent official activity?
There have been some moments of hope, followed by disappointment. On September 14th, 2021, bone fragments were found on Loon Mountain in Lincoln, New Hampshire.
Loon Mountain. That's about 25 miles east of the crash site, right? In the White Mountains area, she knew.
Exactly. Maura had been to Loon Mountain before. She knew the area, so this discovery was a huge moment, generated a lot of buzz.
Right.
But in November 2021, after testing, it was announced the remains were not Maura's. Another heartbreaking setback for everyone hoping for closure.
Just brutal.
Then, in January 2022, the FBI issued a national alert in Maura's case. They also created a VICAP profile, that's the Violent Criminal Apprehension Profile.
What does that do?
It's a powerful database. It allows law enforcement agencies across the country to share information about violent crimes and missing persons, looking for patterns, potentially linking cases like Maura's to suspects or other incidents elsewhere. It's a modern tool for cold cases.
Good that they're using that. Any other searches?
Yes, in July 2022, law enforcement initiated another search, this time in the towns of Landaff and Easton, New Hampshire, which are also near the crash area, again demonstrating continued effort but frustratingly slow progress.
And as we hit the 20-year mark this past February.
February 2024, yeah. New Hampshire officials released an age progression photo of Maura. It depicted what she might look like today at 41 years old. A very poignant reminder of just how long she's been gone and that the family still holds on to hope.
But here's where it gets really compelling. The big new development that just recently came to light.
Fingerprint.
The fingerprint. Tell us about this.
Okay, so this is potentially huge. Recently, it emerged that a fingerprint found inside Maura's car back in 2004 has finally been matched.
Matched to who?
To a former West Point cadet named Stephen Baldwin, and Baldwin himself apparently later confirmed the match.
Stephen Baldwin, a West Point cadet. Maura went to West Point briefly. Is there a connection there?
That's the massive question. This connection raises new and absolutely critical questions. When did his fingerprint get in her car? How? Was there any interaction between them, especially given that Baldwin has since had some significant legal problems of his own?
So this isn't just some random print. It's someone potentially connected to her past, found in her car at the disappearance scene.
Exactly. This is fresh, tangible evidence, finally emerging 2 decades later. It could potentially open entirely new avenues of inquiry. It really provides a profound shift from the long-held belief that there was just no new direct evidence to be found at the scene.
Wow. That fingerprint match, 20 years later.
Yeah.
It just powerfully underscores that these cold cases are never truly cold. New tech, persistent review, they could still yield vital clues.
Absolutely. It challenges long-held assumptions, forces investigators to re-examine everything, every potential connection. It's a testament to how crucial every small detail can be, even years down the line.
Okay, let's circle back to the heart of this, the competing theories. What happened to Maura Murray, and how does her family see it now?
Well, the initial police theory, as we discussed, leaned heavily towards voluntary disappearance or maybe even suicide.
Based on her distress, the lies, the alcohol, pack in the car.
Right. Her secret travel plans, the false family death claim to her work, withdrawing nearly all her money, buying the alcohol, her visible emotional state. Early investigators publicly stated she was possibly suicidal and maybe intended to disappear voluntarily or end her life. Given the stress she was under, it wasn't an entirely implausible conclusion at first glance.
And the physical evidence at the scene seemed to support that, initially.
Yeah, to some extent. The spilled wine in the car, the open Coke bottle with alcohol, that was seen as potential evidence she was intoxicated. Maybe she crashed, panicked about getting a DUI, especially with the prior crash and the credit card issue looming, and just fled the scene. That fueled the voluntary disappearance idea. It's a narrative that took hold quickly.
But the family, especially her sister Julie, they've pushed back hard against this from early on.
Vehemently. While the family initially, perhaps in the depths of shock and grief, conceded suicide might be a possibility due to her known depression, their opinions changed drastically as more time passed, more evidence came to light, and they started piecing things together themselves.
And Julie Murray has some very specific strong arguments against the suicide or permanent disappearance theories.
She does, and they're compelling. First, and maybe most importantly for the family, are those accident forms.
The ones she promised her dad she'd get.
Exactly. Julie stresses this constantly. Maura picked up these forms that day. She felt awful about crashing his car. As Julie puts it, there was no way she was not going to follow through on her promise to get them for him. For the family, this detail just screams intent to return. Why get the forms if you're not coming back?
It's a powerful point about fulfilling a commitment. What else?
Julie also points to the items Maura packed in her car. Those textbooks, the birth control, the teeth whitener, makeup. These suggest a temporary trip, not a permanent vanishing act.
Things you'd need for a short absence, implying you'd be resuming your daily life.
Precisely. And her favorite book, Not Without Peril, about hiking in the White Mountains. Julie argues she brought that to maybe go for a hike and clear her head during a temporary escape, not as some kind of cryptic clue to a grim ending, just a comfort item for a short trip.
Trying to de-dramatize some of the clues.
Exactly. Furthermore, Julie highlights Maura's actions on the very day she disappeared. Turning in that homework assignment, emailing professors, even with the lie, recycling those 79 cans.
The mundane tasks.
The mundane tasks. The family sees these as totally inconsistent with someone planning to end their life or disappear forever. They suggest a belief in a future that includes her return to campus.
Okay, those arguments focus on intent. What about the physical scene?
That's the other huge pillar for the family. No footprints. The complete absence of footprints in that deep snow around the car is just critical evidence for them.
Because it makes just walking away seem almost impossible.
Highly improbable, yes. Julie firmly believes Maura probably got into a vehicle right at the scene. Because if she had walked off into the woods, especially with nearly 2 feet of snow, the searches with tracking dogs, thermal imaging, they almost certainly would have found some sign of her or her remains eventually.
So the lack of tracks points directly to her leaving in a car.
It strongly suggests it, either voluntarily getting a ride or involuntarily being taken, which leads directly to Julie's core belief now.
Foul play.
Foul play. Julie strongly believes Maura was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. She believes Maura was picked up by a passing driver, maybe someone who stopped ostensibly to help after the crash and then met with foul play.
And the fact her body has never been found reinforces that.
For the family, yes. It reinforces their belief she didn't just wander off and succumb to the elements because searches likely would have found her. Julie asserts Maura would never purposely do this to her family, never leave them to wonder like this.
And Julie also raises that question. If Maura was planning to meet someone, maybe run away with someone, why hasn't that person ever come forward?
It's a crucial unanswered question. If there is a planned rendezvous, the silence from any potential accomplice or contact is deafening, especially after 20 years of intense scrutiny.
Okay, so that's the family's perspective, leaning heavily towards foul play involving a stranger or opportunistic predator. What about other prominent theories floated over the years?
Well, journalist James Renner, in his book True Crime Addict, explored several possibilities, some quite controversial.
Like what?
He considered the theory that Maura might have traveled with a tandem driver, someone she was caravanning with. Maybe that person picked her up seamlessly after the crash.
Okay, that would explain the lack of footprints and quick disappearance.
It would. Another theory Renner explored was that she disappeared willingly to start a new life, perhaps driven by fears that her credit card fraud case, even if likely to be dismissed, would somehow prevent her from getting hired as a nurse after graduation. A motive for escape.
A more calculated voluntary disappearance.
Right. He also briefly considered the chilling possibility of murder by someone she actually knew, not a stranger, a more personal kind of foul play.
But the family disputes the voluntary disappearance theories.
Fred Murray and the immediate family have strongly disputed those, including the idea she'd just walk away to start anew. They cite her deep family ties, her character, the promise with the forms. They just don't believe she would abandon everyone like that.
It's interesting how this case emerged right at the dawn of the social media age.
It's incredibly significant timing. Maura disappeared on February 9th, 2004. Facebook had launched just 5 days earlier on February 4th.
Wow, 5 days.
Yeah. So this case is widely cited as maybe the first crime mystery of the social media age. It predates the widespread organized online sleuthing communities we have now, yet it still generated massive online speculation almost immediately on older platforms.
Like message boards and forums.
Exactly. Her case became a perfect obsession for armchair detectives across early internet message boards like websleuths.com and others. The public's curiosity, fueled by the internet, turned this from a local New Hampshire missing person case into this enduring national, even international phenomenon. It really became a blueprint for how cold cases would be discussed, dissected, and sometimes even propelled forward by online communities.
Yeah, it truly highlights that evolution of online sleuthing. How cold cases become these public conversations. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it probably hinders with speculation.
It's a double-edged sword, for sure. But Maura's sister Julie, understanding the power of these platforms, even launched her own TikTok account back in 2021, specifically to raise awareness about Maura's case.
Using the modern tools.
Exactly. It shows how families are now leveraging these platforms directly to keep their loved ones' stories alive, to seek answers, often bypassing traditional media channels. It's a proactive and frankly necessary step in such a desperate, long-running situation.
So this deep dive into Maura Murray's disappearance, it really reveals this complex mosaic of clues, contradictions, and just agonizing questions.
Absolutely. From her hidden personal struggles, the pressures she was under, to that mysterious crash scene with its bizarre details, and the subsequent, often frustrating investigation. The ambiguity of her fate just continues to haunt. It resists easy answers, even after 20 years.
And Maura's sister Julie described the family's experience so profoundly. She called it an ambiguous loss.
That's such a powerful term.
It is. She described it as the cyclical state of grief that can be re-traumatized by simple reminders, by new leads that go nowhere. She emphasized that for them, you have to get comfortable living alongside your grief, living alongside the unknowing.
Imagine living with that uncertainty every single day. It's a unique kind of pain, not having answers. And it's compounded by the constant, evolving public discussion and speculation about her case.
And now Julie is taking an even more active role.
Yes, in February 2024, marking those 20 years since Maura vanished, Julie launched her own podcast called Media Pressure.
Media pressure.
Yeah. Her aim is to tell Maura's story accurately, responsibly from the family's perspective, and importantly, to apply media pressure on law enforcement, on potential witnesses, on anyone who might hold answers. As Julie says, we have to be her voice.
That kind of direct advocacy is incredibly powerful. It keeps the case active in the public consciousness, demands accountability, and maybe shakes loose new information.
And the fact that new information, like that fingerprint match to Stephen Baldwin, is still emerging 2 decades later, it's a stark reminder that no detail is too small. Every piece of this puzzle holds potential significance.
Maybe the police missed things initially, maybe opportunities were lost, but the cold case unit, the FBI's involvement, the persistent public attention, Julie's advocacy, they continue to chip away at this mystery. It offers a glimmer of hope, however faint.
This case really serves as a poignant reminder that while time passes, the truth, however buried it might be, remains out there. Someone, somewhere, likely knows what happened to Maura Murray after she left that crash scene.
It really leaves you with that lingering question. In our modern world, with increasing surveillance, digital trails for everything, how is it still possible for someone to just vanish, almost without a trace, off the side of a road?
The Maura Murray case forces us to confront those enduring vulnerabilities, those gaps where someone can just fall through. Even now, it's unsettling.
It truly is. And because answers are still desperately needed, we want to end with this. If you, the listener, have any information concerning Maura Murray's disappearance, anything at all, no matter how insignificant you think it might seem, please come forward.
You can contact the New Hampshire State Police Cold Case Unit directly. Their number is 603-223-3648. That's 603-223-3648.
You can also contact your local FBI office, or you can submit an anonymous tip online through the FBI's website at fbi.gov.
Your information, even the smallest detail, could genuinely be the key. It could be the missing piece that finally brings answers, and hopefully some measure of closure to Maura's family after 2 long decades of waiting and wondering.